Hello everyone, and welcome back to our ongoing explainer of the UP PGT 2010 economics paper. This is part 7.
All right, today we're jumping into 10 key questions covering two really important areas: public finance and monetary economics. So let's get started.
Okay, so first up, we've got our section on public finance, where we'll look at how the government handles its money. Here is the first question.
So, question 61 is asking about the 12th Finance Commission. Specifically, what was the 5-year period that its recommendations applied to?
The correct answer here is B, 2005 to 2010. Now, this is a big one to remember. The Finance Commission, which is set up under Article 280 of the Constitution, its whole job is to figure out how money flows from the center to the states. For this particular one, the 12th Commission, the person in charge was Dr. C. Rangarajan. So for your exam, you really want to lock in those two details: the time frame and the chairman.
All right, next up, we have a really important piece of legislation, the FRBM Act. You see questions about its implementation year all the time in these exams.
And the answer is 2004. Now, this is a classic tricky question, so pay close attention. The act itself was passed by Parliament in 2003, but it didn't actually go into effect until 2004. And what was it all about? Well, it was all about bringing in some serious financial discipline, setting targets to cut down on fiscal and revenue deficits. So yeah, definitely jot down both of those dates.
Okay, question 63 wants you to look at this list and figure out which one is not a way for the government to make money.
The correct answer is transfer payments. Think of it this way. Transfer payments are a one-way street. The government gives out money, like for pensions or scholarships, to support people. But it's not getting a product or a service back in return. That's why it's an expense for the government, not a source of income.
Let's dig into how tax money is divided up. The question is, which of these taxes does the central government collect and keep all to itself? And the answer here is customs duty. This is a big one. Both customs duty and another one, corporation tax, are collected by the central government, and they get to keep all of it. The revenue isn't shared with the states, making it a key source of exclusive income for the center.
All right, time to switch gears. Let's move into our second section, monetary economics, where we'll tackle questions about things like inflation, banking, and currency.
Okay, question 65 brings up a really fascinating and kind of scary economic word, stagflation. So what on earth does it actually mean? The correct answer is A, and this is where things get really tricky for an economy. Stagflation is this weird paradox where two things are happening that shouldn't happen at the same time. The economy is stagnating, which means slow growth and more people out of work, and inflation is high. This is a policymaker's nightmare because the tools you use to fight unemployment can make inflation worse and vice versa. Here's a pretty practical question about inflation. When you hear that there's an 8% inflation rate, what does that really signify?
So, the most direct answer here is A. The prices of consumer goods have gone up by 8%. Now, you might be thinking about option B, that the purchasing power of money has gone down. And you're right, that's a direct result of inflation. But option A is the actual definition of what that 8% rate means.
This next one tests how well you know the job of a central bank, like the RBI here in India. Which of these things is not part of its job description?
Okay, the correct answer is credit creation. And this slide shows a really important difference you need to know. The central bank, think of it as the big boss, is all about credit control. It's their job to manage and regulate how much credit is out there. But the commercial banks, the ones you and I use every day, they're the ones who actually do the credit creation. They're the ones making new loans. So, control versus creation. That's the key. Here we have a fundamental question straight out of the quantity theory of money. What kind of relationship does Fisher's famous equation describe between money and prices?
Yep, the answer is a direct and proportional relationship. And it all comes down to that famous equation, MV equals PT. The way to think about it is pretty simple, really. The theory says if you hold V, how fast money is changing hands, and T, the total number of transactions, steady, then whatever you do to M, the money supply, is going to happen to P, the price level. Double the money supply, you're going to double the prices. It's direct and proportional.
Okay, let's talk about devaluation. If a country intentionally lowers the value of its currency, what happens to its imports and exports? The correct answer is B. Let's walk through this chain reaction. First, when a country devalues, it's basically putting its own products on a global sale.
They become cheaper for other countries to buy, so your exports go up. On the flip side, all the stuff you import from other countries suddenly gets more expensive for you, so you buy less of it. What's the end game? As you can see in that last step, it's a tool that can help fix a deficit in your balance of payments.
And for our last question, we're diving into Keynesian economics. When an economy is stuck in a recession, what was Keynes's go-to solution?
And the answer is fiscal policy. This is pure Keynesian thinking. He argued that when an economy is in a really bad recession, just playing with interest rates, monetary policy, often doesn't work. It's like pushing on a string. So he said the government has to step in and become the big spender. Through fiscal policy like funding huge infrastructure projects or cutting taxes, the government can directly pump demand back into the economy and get people back to work.
All right, let's do a super quick recap of the big ideas. The FRBM Act kicked in 2004. Stagflation is that nasty mix of inflation plus unemployment, and devaluation makes your exports cheaper for the world. Great job today. Thanks so much for joining me for this part of the series. I'll see you in the next one where we'll tackle question 71. Until then, keep on revising.